Greetings, peers and queers. Welcome back to another episode of Monday through Friday. I am your gay goth girl hostess, JC, and on today's episode, get ready because we are going to be gabbing about ghosts. So, let's talk about ghosts. First of all, if you are in the northern hemisphere, we have just passed the autumnal equinox, otherwise known as Mabon, and we are quickly approaching the new year. Of course, I'm talking about Samhain, Samhain, All Saints' Day, All Hallows' Eve, or Halloween. As we approach this witch's new year, please be advised that the veil between worlds is kind of thin right now. We're in that fun little period where night has surpassed daytime, and spirits are finding it a lot easier to communicate and to deal with us here in the mundane world. So here's some stories for you about ghosts, stories I have experienced, and then also here's some tips when interacting with spirits. First of all, know what you're getting into. Don't get in over your head. Don't try to automatically interact with or summon something if you have no experience doing so whatsoever. That's not a good idea. Also, most of the spirits that you're going to come in contact with are people. For the most part, they were at one time a living, breathing human being. Now they are still a human being. They're just not living and breathing. So please treat them with respect, the same respect that you would afford anyone else. Just because it's the right thing to do. When we are dealing with spirits, and I'm using spirits as a broad spectrum term here, okay? But when we're dealing with spirits in total, it's a good idea to show some level of respect. The only time when it's really okay to not show respect is when one is being intrusive of your space or is trying to be a delinquent in your own established home. When one is trying to upset the people and the animals that live in your home, then you can start to be a little bit rude and putting your foot down. But other than that, please go about treating all spirits with respect and kindness, just like you would give anyone else. I thought that would be interesting if I shared with you, the viewer, a few of my personal interactions that I have had with spirits. The most recent of which occurred about 3 days ago as of the time of this recording. So here's the story. I'm opening up at Dunkin' Donuts, and it's just me and one other person. The other person is concentrating on stacking all the donuts where they need to go. I'm in the back, filling up all the coffee, the iced coffees for the morning, and getting things ready, and getting ready to place, inventory. As this is happening, I start experiencing some things, as if someone was tapping on the metal counter that we have back there, as if someone was banging on the wall next to my head. I kept out of the corner of my eye, seeing something rush up at me, and then when I went to look at it, it would disappear, and then it would come from this end, and I'd go to look at it, and it would disappear. I got the notion that it was embarrassed. It was embarrassed having to come up to me or other reasons. And then things that were standing up kept tipping over around me that had never tipped over on me before. Trash cans start knocking over, different things like that. If I had a bag ready to go, it would slide off the counter and onto the floor. Things like that. Come to find out, the place that I work at is haunted. Haunted by a former employee who passed away in the building. And this is kind of what happened. We are getting ready to move from our building now to a new location, which is being built. It's under construction. The manager had posted a permit for construction. There was a big yellow sign there that said construction permit. And the spirit that essentially dwells within this Dunkin' was a former employee, passed away there about 7 years ago, and lives there. was very concerned and was trying to get my attention. She, because it was a she, was very pleased to find out that I could keep my shit together and not freak out, and can also speak with her and understand her. Because I just kind of opened myself to it. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're making noise. I've got stuff to do, but I've got a second. What's the hurry? What's going on? And she pointed to this yellow sign that we had, construction permit, new building. She was worried that she was going to get lost, that we were going to leave her here, and she was worrying about what was going to happen to her once we leave. She had a lot of questions. Number one was she was upset that we were leaving her. She was worried what was going to happen to her if everyone leaves. And then she was also worried what's going to happen to her if everyone leaves and they tear down the building. That was a good point. I explained to her, I'm like, hey, listen, you cannot leave this place because you feel like you are tied to this building. So you can't really leave this place. If this place gets torn down, it's going to be a shell of its former self to you. It's not fully going to be there, but you'll remember it as best you can, and it will be this kind of eternal building for you, which often happens to spirits if they have a particular location that they're very fond of in life, and that structure gets torn down, burnt down, bulldozed, what have you. They will continue to go on as if that building existed the way that it did, that they remember. That is the reason why ghosts are somehow able to fly. It's because at one time in a Victorian home, there might be a staircase, and a woman might walk up that staircase, and then her spirit also walks up that staircase. But then new owners come in, and they tear down that staircase. They move it to another part of the building. Doesn't matter. That woman still walks up that staircase. Happens a lot. Cat. So I explained to her, I'm like, hey, it's going to be how you remember it. But something will feel a little bit off on it, almost like food without taste. It'll be substance, but it won't really feel like it's there. That happens. She was very worried, what's going to happen to me if this building gets destroyed? Well, there's your answer. Your options are, in that case, and I am talking to anyone out there who feels like they might end up being a spirit one day, or any spirits that happen to be watching this over people's shoulders. Your options at that point are this. You can either continue to dwell within the place that you feel comfortable and keep going about your routine, and the world will change. Ages will pass, the world will change, and eventually that structure is no longer going to be there. For something like a castle, might take hundreds of years. For something like a department store, it might take something like 20 years. But eventually, the world's going to move on. The world's going to change, and you might be eternal. You might need to change with it. Your other option is to pass on. And that might sound very scary because a lot of us were raised believing that if I wasn't a really good person and followed a strict set of laws, then I'm going to go to a bad place where it's really hot. But that's not always the case. Religious guilt aside, say that you're just afraid of everything ending, of letting go, and everything goes blank, everything goes white. That's a valid point, but we are made of energy. This life continues, just in different facets. Your best bet would probably be to move on. You can absolutely stick around for a few years just to get your bearings or to come to grips with what happened to you. But your best bet is probably to move on. So I had explained to the spirit, yes, we are getting ready to, in the next couple of months, move to a different building. Your options right now are to move on, which I highly suggest, and nothing bad will come to you unless you believe that it will. Or to remain in an even more hollow state, waiting for the world to move on and leave you behind. It kind of happens. So she was a little bit worried. She was like, I don't know. I don't trust it. I don't know if I'm ready for something this big. And I'm like, hey, you don't have to make this decision right away. You haven't made this decision for about 7 years. But you don't have to make this decision right away. You have a few months until we pick up and move to the next store. Again, your options are either move on to what's next and trust yourself and believe that it's going to be okay, because it will be. It's going to be okay. Or remain, and it's going to be a long and lonely journey if you remain. You're going to be here by yourself for a very long time until somebody either comes by, buys the place, opens it back up as something else, and then you have company again, or the place like falls apart or gets demolished, in which case, where are you going to be? And she was worried about that. She listened. And I'm like, also, think of it as therapy. It's not what you were told, where like you're either bad and you go down or you're good and you go up. You have to come to terms with everything that happened to you in this life, especially if you missed the like immediate opportunity to be like, heart stops, 1, 2, 3, go. If you miss that like 1, 2, 3, go, and you decide to wander a little bit, it gets a little bit harder to find your way, and it gets a little bit scarier. Have you ever, and I'm talking to anyone out there, mortal or otherwise, have you ever been afraid of something, afraid to do something, and the longer that you put it off, the more intense that fear got? Like, oh no, I can't go do this. Oh no, I really can't do this. Oh no, why did I wait so long? Oh no, it's going to be bad. It's going to be horrible, because you waited so long. You waited so long, and then the anticipation, the fear became greater than the actual thing that you were worried about in the first place. It's the same thing with passing on from one world to the other. The longer that you wait to do it, the scarier it's going to end up being. So for those people who, heart stops, 1, 2, 3, and they go, okay. For the others who wait, heartbeat stops, 1, 2, 3, hold on, I'm not ready yet, and they continue to linger on this plane, that worry, that anticipation, that dread can grow and grow and grow and grow until the dread is what is weighing you down. So my advice would be to probably move on. Now, there is a third option when it comes to this particular case. The spirit was worried that we were going to leave her behind and that we were going to forget her, and that she was going to be trapped all alone in this old building. The third option, which isn't the best, the third option is somebody invites her along. The third option is somebody invites her to the new location, and they would have to transport her in some kind of vessel. Be that like a doll, where the spirit would take on the form of the doll, enter the doll, possess the doll, and then she can either remain in that doll or she can like exit the doll at the new location. It is a lot easier to slip into something like that than it is to come back out again. For anyone out there listening, it is a lot easier to enter into something like a doll than it is to get out of it again. So I don't recommend that one. Also, depending on who you're talking to, if you're a mortal talking to a spirit, that could end up being bad for both of you. The spirit can end up going insane, being in this new confined space for too long, and you could end up being haunted personally. You would be the one made to blame for their state. That's not a good idea. The other one is to get a bottle with a cork or a screw-on cap. Try to make it glass. Don't make it plastic. Why? Because plastic's made from oil, and that's just gross. Glass is made from sand. People have been using it for eons. Try to get a glass bottle with a cork. I have several. So you get your glass bottle, and you invite the spirit into the bottle. what I would normally do is I would let them know, hey, if this one is going to be temporary, like I'm just moving you to the new location, hey, trust me on this one. You have my word. What's going to go on is you are going to find a way to get into the bottle. I'm going to seal the lid. I'm going to bring you to the new location, and then I'm going to open the bottle. And then you will be free and encouraged to leave the bottle and explore your new surroundings. The reason that this one is not the best idea is because it entices the spirit to stick around longer and not move on. And it's very much like giving somebody a pain reliever instead of treating their disease or their sickness. It's great for a temporary. It's an awesome band-aid. Everything is numb and you don't have to worry about anything, but it doesn't solve the problem. The problem is that your soul needs to continue on to the next stage. So if you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to go to this new place, and then you never leave that place, the world's going to get a lot more weird, okay, as we move forward. For any of us who have been alive long enough to see us go from phones that had to be plugged into the wall and had a cord to cell phones in your hand, imagine that, but imagine that like 5 times over. And that's kind of what it's like when the world makes progress and you passed away in the 1800s. Now all of a sudden people are like, oh, on the internet and stuff. It's bizarre. I digress. There's a few lessons to unpack in that short story. Number 1 is try not to be afraid, because like I was afraid, I'm not going to lie. I was not prepared for that morning. Bang, bang, bang. I wasn't prepared for it because I was all in like, I got to get my job done. I got to get ready for opening. But then it's like, okay, now I need to like act as a therapist and a counselor because I'm a witch. And that's what we do. We help all people as best we can unless they give us a reason otherwise. And this was a person that came up to me and was like, I'm very afraid right now. And even though I was a little bit afraid, it's like, hey, you know what? It's just mortality. Here's the deal, honey. We got you. These are your options right now. I did not tell her about the bottle because I would rather her move on to the next stage of her life. Another story. Growing up. Here we go. Ready? I grew up in a very haunted house. I grew up in a haunted house in Chicago's west suburbs, a suburb by the name of Schaumburg. Here's how that happened. This was not a ghost. This was a different type of spirit. There's a couple different names for this type of spirit, but I will go ahead and I will just use the most common name, which is shadow person. Okay? Y'all know what a shadow person is? So I lived in a house with a shadow person. My biological father, when he was in college, had summoned something, opened a circle, and something came through, and he didn't expel it. He didn't banish it. He didn't close the circle, and it ended up following him around for a lot of his adult life. And this thing took on different appearances to the other members of my household. At the time, I was a very young child, under the age of 5. I know that because we moved when I was 5. So I was under the age of 5. And to me, there were several people in the household, my dad, my mom, my brother, and myself. To me, this shadow person didn't look like a tall, stretched out, slender man. This thing looked like Gamork from the Neverending Story. That werewolf thing. And it decided, I'm going to mess with that one in particular, and I'm going to take that shape. So yeah, a lot of times it would be me waking up in the middle of the night, 1 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. in the morning, going out to the kitchen, blanking out, staring at the wall for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then I would wake up out of this haze, out of this hypnosis. I would start to walk back to my room, which was down the hall. And as I would be walking down the hall, this giant wolf-like creature would appear in the hallway, floating about 6 inches off the ground, running in slow motion at me, stop, and then it would talk to me. All right? It would talk to me. It would tell me a lot of stuff that I'm not going to repeat, including you need to hurt people. And luckily, I grew up in a household where we believed in that kind of stuff. So when I said, hey, this has happened to me again for like the next couple of nights in a row, I'd be like, hey, this happened, hey, this happened, hey, this happened. My mom would be like, okay, yeah, I do believe you. And we would do some kind of like a cleansing of the house. But that thing stayed behind when we moved, fortunately. Now, that story was my first encounter ever with a spirit. It was very traumatic. Other people in the house experienced, scratches or were pushed up the steps, slapped on their bottoms, or, just a whole bunch of bad things. Me personally, it just really, it liked telling me things and seeing how I'd react. But the reason I tell you that story is so that I can explain what shadow people are. All right? So, say that you're a spirit. You're a ghost of somebody who once was living, and now your energy, your soul is unlocked on this planet, and you're just wandering around without a body to inhabit. You're wandering around, and you're thinking, should I move on? Should I move on? No, I can't move on. I was a very wicked person. I was a very bad person. So whatever I'm doing here is going to be a lot better than what I face on the other end. Okay, fair enough. You stick around for a few years. 5 years goes by, 10 years, 25 years. The point of the matter is, at some point, everything that you knew changes, and you lose all connection to the way that the world works or who you were in your mortal form. You have made the decision. Motorcycle. Basically, you stick around for so long that the world changes, the world moves on without you, and you lose all connection to who you were as a mortal person, and you've also made the decision that you will not go forward. So you're stuck here. You eventually go crazy. You lose your wits. You lose your senses. You just become sad and angry, and it's someone else's fault, and it's my fault, and someone's got to pay for this. And what am I doing here? And who am I? And then eventually you forget who you are, and you go mad. And a spirit that was a ghost forgets who they are and goes mad, is full of rage, and becomes a shadow person. That's what shadow people are. They are spirits that refuse to move on, and enough time has passed where they forget their mortal life, and they go crazy, and then they are nothing but raw hate and all these vile emotions and stuff. And they just hate everything. And have you ever experienced someone who is in so much pain that they cannot help themselves but be mean? That is what a shadow person is. Shadow people can be very, very difficult to deal with. But I will give you another witchy tip right here, right now. This is how you deal with a spirit that is feeding off of your negative emotions. One that is pushing you towards getting in arguments with other people in the house, fighting with your spouse or your children. You laugh. They cannot stand it. You laugh. You find reasons to be happy. You find reasons to laugh wholeheartedly. You find reasons to love and to be bright and merry. That is how you kind of starve off a shadow person. Someone who is kind of sick and gets sicker because they're being fed off of by 1, 2, 5, 20 shadow people. It happens. They will alert others to, hey, dinner time. Someone over here is actually falling for our trick and really beginning to hate themselves, hate people around them, and hate life. How you do that is in the early stages, you just find reasons to laugh a lot. Not fake laughing, You actually laugh. Put on some comedy shows. Laugh your pants off. Bring friends over. Cook for your friends. Be happy. The more that you're like, I will not give in to this depression, this nothing, this darkness, you're going to not be fun for them anymore. And in the early stages, they'll move on. Here's another witchy tip for you. If you do have some kind of spirit in your home and it is unwelcome, and you don't like it there, there are different things to do to protect yourself. I'll give you two options right now. Number one is take a red ribbon, a red piece of yarn, a red piece of string, something that you can visually see at a small distance. Red ribbon, red yarn, and you go ahead, you tie it around your doorknobs. You tie it around the door handles going in and out of the house. You tie it on the door handles for your bedroom and any other person's bedroom, especially little people. Watch out for little people. And I'm not talking about the Fae. I am talking about if you have small children in your home or prepubescent children in your home. Take extra precautions when protecting them because they are closer to source. They're closer to understanding and where we came from. They're closer to the universe, to God, Goddess, what have you, that they are more easily affected. The younger they are, the more this is true. So if you have a red ribbon, tie it around their door handles as well. Any door handle in the house, tie a red ribbon around it, red yarn. Why? Because this creates a barrier that spirits are reluctant to pass through. Why would a spirit be reluctant to pass through a door or a threshold where there has been a red marker on it, where there's red yarn, red string? This goes back to ancient Egypt and the tale of Moses. Do you remember when Moses was like, hey, Pharaoh, let my people go? And the Pharaoh said, absolutely not. And then they go through a whole bunch of plagues. And the final one is that something comes in the middle of the night and takes the firstborn child, the firstborn son from every family. But the Jews, the Hebrews, had painted in blood over their houses, over their thresholds, over their doors. You know, pass this one over, pass over this house. The red ribbon, the red yarn, is a callback to the Passover symbol of painting blood over your door, painting red essentially over your threshold to be like, spirit, not this one. Do not choose this one. That works. Red ribbon, red yarn on a door handle. It works a majority of the time. Another one that you could do, the other one that I have for you today, is white flowers, particularly white lilies. Now, they don't have to be living flowers. You don't have to go out to the store once a week and buy a bouquet of white flowers, although that would be amazing, and it would make your house smell good. But if you place white flowers of any kind, even if they are artificial, especially in places where the spirits seem to be the most active, usually places where there is running water, such as a bathroom or a kitchen, white flowers, white lilies in particular, are a symbol of the Virgin Mary and are also used by different goddesses and deities and women of note throughout all different cultures, be that Ishtar, Ostara, Aphrodite, white lilies. Having white lilies there will remind a spirit that they have indeed passed on, that they are indeed dead, and that it's a funeral rite. You're welcome to move on now. You don't belong here. Don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So white lilies or white flowers of any kind, even if they're artificial, place them in a place where you get a lot of ghostly activity, spiritual activity, and it should damper that down. It should lessen it down. You can also have a priest come by or a friend who is some kind of a shaman or priest or other significant spiritual person. Have them bless your home, especially the thresholds, the doorways, and the windows. You can get graveyard dirt or ground brick dust, and you can put that along the perimeter of your house and on the windowsills and on the doorways outside of your home. That's another good way to create a barrier, a border against any kind of negative energy, not just negative spirits. I guess it's time for one more ghost story. Here we go. So I used to work at a nursing home. And for anyone who has worked at a nursing home, you already know where I'm going with this. Nursing homes and hospitals are places where spirit activity is at a premium. There is a lot of spiritual activity going on in nursing homes and in hospitals. Why? Because people are sick. People are old. People are frail. People are fighting to recover and don't always win the fight. It can catch someone off guard that they have died. I was working in a nursing home, and in the ice room, the room where we keep the large machine that creates and dispenses all the ice for like the glasses of water and stuff. By the way, lots of water moving around inside the ice room, lots of electrical systems in and about that area. More on that in just a second. First of all, I'm like head in the ice machine, getting ice out and stuff. And you know when like you just feel somebody's eyes on you? I didn't hear the door open, and I'm very aware of little things like light coming in or a door opening or closing and stuff, just because reasons. I didn't hear the door open, but I knew somebody was watching me. So I stood up kind of slowly, and then I put on my best intimidation square shoulder. And before I turn around, I'm like, I know you're there. And then I turn around and poof, who's standing in front of me? But the new resident that we had come in just the night before. I recognized them because they were in a yellow hospital gown, had socks on and a wristband from the hospital that they had arrived in, and nothing else. That's exactly how they arrived from the hospital, without anything but a hospital gown, hospital socks, and a hospital band. Older gentleman, bald head, scraggly beard, kind of sturdy but short. I had helped set up the bed that he went into when he arrived. He looked at me. We made eye contact. He couldn't really talk. And I'm like, I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're here. I'm sorry that you're having to face this right now. I'm working with the ice machine. Somebody's watching me. The door has not opened. I stand up. I'm like, I know you're there. I turn around. Here he is again. This dude who could not move on his own and had to have people carry him to the bed. He's standing there before me. I'm like, what do you want? His mouth goes open. He goes, oh, and then poof, turns into vapor, disappears. So I go up to the nurse's station, and if you want to meet some people who are very superstitious, go talk to some nurses. Nurses are superstitious, and they also know everything about medicine. Nurses are your modern day witches, because most of them are superstitious. They know about medicine. They know how to heal people. They like to party, and they like to luzz out. Nurses and CNAs are where it's at when it comes to that shit. So, what makes it easier for a spirit to speak to us? Number one, spirits are able to apparate, to appear, to visually be seen. To most people, there is running water nearby. Be that a running tap, like a sink, or even it raining. That's why you will hear a lot of stories. It was a dark and stormy night, because when rain is falling, it creates the right conditions for spirits to talk. The day that I was at work, and that spirit was banging on stuff and was like, hey, I'm here, I'm afraid, what do I do? It was raining outside. So yeah, moving water is something that definitely helps spirits communicate. Another one would be high EMFs, high electromagnetic fields. So if you're like in a place where like there's heavy electricity coming to a junction box, or there's exposed wires in the walls that are surging a little bit, or you're underneath telephone wires, you will see some crazy stuff if you live close to some like old telephone wires. If there's like old telephone wires, or you're near a junction box or something like that, that is also creating the right conditions for a spirit to fully make itself known, fully appear, fully communicate. Another one would be anything crystalline, like salt mines or limestone deposits, limestone fields, quartz crystals inside of granite boulders and caves. You'll hear a lot of stories about human abductions or strange disappearances, or things dealing with a demon, an alien, or a ghost living in the cave, because granite boulders contain crystals in them, contain crystal quartz in them, and that crystal quartz acts as kind of like a radio tuner to help boost what it is that our souls, our energy are made of. That's why a lot of witches and spiritual people work with crystals. They do work to amplify our energetic fields, but when you are just a spirit, just energy, stripped away from all this skin and stuff like that, you will find it easier to operate in areas with a lot of crystal quartz and limestone. So that's why a lot of those places have that kind of going on. So that's pretty much it for this week. Thank you all very much for watching. Hopefully this video was as entertaining as it was educational. If you do like hearing me speak about supernatural topics, you want to hear more stories about the supernatural, or if you're interested in more witchy tips, please go ahead and tell me down in the comments below. Let me know that this is something that you might be interested in hearing. Further videos like this. Other than that, please like this video if you thought that it was fun. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and hit the bell icon so that you will be notified when I come out with future videos. Other than that, I love you all very much. Please enjoy your spooky season. I know that I will. Bye.